What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Panthers Advice. Today, man, we've got a lot to get into. Dan Morgan actually talks about why he took McMillan over Jaylon Walker, all right, and when he knew it was time to make that decision. He talks about the D-line and basically how they got their butt kicked against the run, all right, and he talks about why the Panthers didn't take any inside linebackers. Now, I said that during my streams, right, but a lot of people were like, I don't know if we need them. TD asked Dan Morgan that question. He's like, you guys kind of struggled there. All right, so stay tuned for that, man. A lot to get into, but first, I want to look at this comment right here. All right, this is from Quiet Pro 3591. Where is Kobe Hudson, the receiver? Now, I did a video yesterday on Jacoby George out of Miami. The Panthers got him for a steal. Usually a 4th or 5th round pick, but sometimes he got in the way of himself, right? And so the Panthers offered him more money than he would have got as a 6th round pick. So they took Jimmy Horn, signed Jacoby George, and then they signed Kobe Hudson right here. Kobe Hudson, all I'm going to say is this. Stay tuned for the video on Friday. I got to do some more research because I'm like, okay, this dude is stupid. All right, he is nice. But why was he not drafted? So I have to do my research because I don't want to lead you guys on. All right, got to do my research to figure out what's going on with him. But this dude could be a number 2 receiver. I'm not even kidding. All right, Jacoby George is nice. Jimmy Horn is a perfect slot guy. But Kobe, he might be that guy. But with that being said, man, let's jump into the video we're talking about today. Dan Morgan, TD. Let's get into it.
And with the first round pick, there were a lot of mock drafts that had us selecting edge rushers, in particular Jaylon Walker out of Georgia with their first pick. When and why did you decide that Tet McMillan would be our guy? You know, when we had the opportunity to add a playmaker like Tet.
We're pausing it right here. I think it's funny they both said Tet, even though he doesn't want to be called Tet, right? Not a big deal. But we're pausing it right here because Dan said when we had an opportunity to add a playmaker like McMillan. And that got me thinking. I'm like, okay, who's really a playmaker on the offensive side, right? And other than Chuba, right, Bryce Young's the quarterback. I'm looking, and I'm like, I don't know that we have a playmaker. Jalen Coker's a great receiver, right? But who's a playmaker? Who's somebody that's going to basically get you that 3rd and 20 if you throw it up to him? Who's somebody who can take 5, get you 15? The Panthers really didn't have that on offense, and you could say, okay, Coker, that could be it. But then teams will just cover Coker, right? Just like they did with Adam Thielen. Thielen's 34. XL, we don't know what we're getting. So if that's our starting 3 right here, Coker, Leggett, and Thielen, so let's say it's 3rd and 20, right? And these are the 3 we have out there. They'll shade to Coker, Leggett, kind of play him over the top, force him to make basically a focus catch, right? Make him think too much. And then Thielen, they're just going to run with him, right? Because that's Thielen's weakness is he's 34 and he's getting a little bit slower. So you shade over here, all right? You play over the top on Leggett. You man up Thielen. Where are we going to go? Here's the answer for all those, though. McMillan, all right? You run with McMillan. If he's running a post corner, you better guess right. If you try to run with him, he's got a big catch radius, right? So McMillan, looking back now, hindsight's 2020, it basically gives Bryce that playmaker on offense that he's been missing. Because if you shade there, it doesn't matter. He's got a big catch radius, right? You run with him, it doesn't matter. Because his 6'4 body, if he gets in front of you, if he stacks you, it's done, right? And if you play over the top, he'll take that every day of the week. So I pretty much agree with what Dan said right there.
I think we had the strike. And
so it's interesting. It's like no offense to the other edge rushers, right? And as I look at our depth chart, right, and we look at our weak side linebackers, which is where I think Mike Green or Jaylon Walker might play, I don't know that either one of them would start in front of DJ. I know I've said that before, but even in front of Patrick Jones either, right? I think Jaylon Walker is kind of a mix of a DJ Wallman and Patrick Jones, to be honest with you. And even if we got Michael Williams, all right, I did like him. I think he'd be a good backup for Clowney, but then you got to weigh out the production. Who's going to give you more right away? McMillan or Michael Williams, right? I'm sure in the next coming drafts, right, we can get a strong side linebacker if need be, right? If that's our only weakness, you know, I'm sure we can get one. So based on what Dave said, when it comes to playmakers on offense or defense, offense needed one way more than the defensive side did.
So Dan, one of the things that I will say that you did agree with the mock drafts on was that we needed some help on the edge. And you did address that area with back-to-back picks in the second and third round.
Now, if you're wondering why we're looking at the Falcons draft picks, I'm not going to lie. After the first round, what was that, Thursday night, I was like, the Falcons got Jaylon Walker and James Pierce Jr. because it seemed like those who didn't want Jaylon Walker, they wanted James Pierce Jr., kind of vice versa, right? I'm like, the Falcons got both? Both? But you saw what the Panthers did. They got Nick Scorton. They got Princely. I was like, okay, we can work with that. And you get McMillan too. Very well done.
So Nick, he's transferred from Purdue, Purdue to Texas A&M. It's just a guy that's like really physical. He can get off the rock. He has twitch. He can beat you with speed or power. And then you look at Princely. Princely has that bend and that speed off the edge that we were looking for. And then he has an arsenal of moves too that he can beat you with. So also, Dan, when you look at
before TD continues, right? The key thing he said there was basically Nick is going to be more of a run stopper. And you heard him mention Princely, and Princely essentially has a bag of different pass rush moves he can do. That's kind of the essential difference right now. Not saying Nick won't develop into a great pass rusher, but just based off the base foundation, that's kind of what we're looking at with those two.
A little bit because of the production drop. When he was at Purdue, he played more of a stand-up outside linebacker type, which he would be playing in this defense. And I was encouraged and excited because if you watch some of the film of him on Texas A&M, when he made his biggest plays, he was standing up and he was rushing off the edge.
So that was also a big thing, right? I think Purdue, he had 10 sacks. He goes to Texas A&M, he has 5 sacks, right? It's like, okay, production dropped. You know what's going on. We're going to get to that in a second, but a couple of things to note about Nick Scorton right here, for those who didn't know. Nick lost 28 pounds ahead of the NFL draft. 28 pounds. As it says right here, Nick was listed at 6'4", 285. All right, when he arrived at Texas A&M this past year. By his pro day in March, he dropped down to 257. 257. And you got to realize, the Panthers are going to add more muscle. He's going to drop some more weight. Nick, ooh, man. He said right here his explanation for the weight loss was simple. It was a less deliberate effort propelled by special dieting and more about establishing a mindful routine. And what you have to realize right here is Nick, he's only 20 years old. So the fact mentally he's willing to make himself lose 28 pounds, I mean, how many of us have tried to do a diet before, right? Just lose a quick 5-10 before, summer hits, right? Get right? This man is going to make millions no matter what. And he still chose to put his body through football, lose an extra 30 pounds, not eat as much, and not even not eat as much, not eat your favorite foods. Man, that's the hardest part, right? That's the hardest part because you got to realize, okay, if he lost 28 pounds by March, that means from really October to then, he was sacrificing a lot. And that's hard because, when October hits, it starts to get dark, it's cold, maybe not in Texas as much, but that's like the most prime time to eat your favorite foods, right? You're kind of just chilling in the house. And look at Nick, man. Look at Nick doing big things, all right? Now, TD touched on him. Essentially, he played better as a 3-4 guy when he was in a 2-point stance compared to a 3-point stance like he was at A&M. But I want you guys to watch the film. Okay, this is him at Purdue when he had 10 sacks, and everyone's like, oh, I liked him better at Purdue. You guys watch the film. Let me know what you think. All right, it goes on for another 10, 15 seconds. And really look at the film at him in Purdue versus him at Texas A&M. All right, you got him coming off the edge. All right, bang, he's going to take down the quarterback. And then we have 1 or 2 more plays left. Let's take a look. Okay, no, we're at A&M. Go back to this first play real quick. All right, you got him lined up on the edge right here. Do you see how quick he is? Look how much quicker he is at A&M. So for those saying that, oh, his production value dropped, are we serious right now? He is so much quicker, like right there. All right, that was our last play too. I mean, maybe it's just me, but Man, he looks quick. Because, I mean, just this one play alone, right? Where he swats the ball down. Right? And then go back here. Take a look real quick. This was against Indiana right here. Take a look right here against the tackle. He looks quick, but he looks sluggish, right? And you go back to this last play up here. I know we're time skipping a lot. Right? Look at these plays right here. Look how much quicker he looks off the line. And this is a problem when you only look at numbers because you don't see what's actually happening. Nick at A&M versus Nick at Purdue, completely different. Completely, man. Let's keep it going.
This D-line is maybe even in comparison to last season, the beginning of last season.
So she talks about this defensive line versus last year's defensive line. Let's take a look at what we had. I think this depth chart was pulled from April 25th, 2024, so almost really just over a year ago today. All right, so Derek Brown, obviously, Shaw Tuttle, A'Shawn Robinson, okay. Backing them up, LeBron Ray, Nick Thurman, and Raekwon Williams. Not the best. All right, and if you go to this year, let's see what we're working with now. All right, you got Derek Brown, Bobby Brown, Tershawn Wharton. To me, that says upgrade immediately, and it's not even close. It's really not even close. Now you got Shaw Tuttle and A'Shawn Robinson backing up Bobby Brown, all right, and backing up Tershawn Wharton. Pretty good if you ask me. All right, to me, this isn't even close, guys. It's not even close. And the problem was, all right, so you had Shaw Tuttle and A'Shawn Robinson before, right? They're starting. Teams kept constantly running it against us. And not just shade against Tuttle and Robinson. Whether it was Shaq when he was healthy, Josie Jewell, DJ Wana when he was healthy, Shad, it didn't matter who was in. Everybody was getting that work. But then you got to look at the backups. So when Shaw Tuttle went out and A'Shawn Robinson went out, here came Nick Thurman, here came LeBron Ray. And teams were just going to run on them too. Front seven was so tired. And we didn't really have a good size there either. But now you look at what we have. All right, it's night and day difference. I mean, it's not even close. Because A'Shawn Robinson's pretty good, right? But now he's going to play behind Tershawn Wharton. Shaw Tuttle's going to play behind Bobby Brown. I really like where we are right now.
Yeah, I feel like we really upgraded the D-line, not only from a talent standpoint, but from a size standpoint. So, you had a guy like Bobby Brown, and drafting Cam.
Woo, there's a nose tackle right here, man. We will get a video on him at some point. I just got to find quite a bit of film on him before we do. This is a big boy. And we didn't really have a big boy like this last year. Really, our nose tackle. This is a big boy, man. I'm excited to watch him.
This year, we couldn't stop the run last year. So to add guys like that, size like that, we're not going to be pushed around up front like we were last year.
I love that he's saying it how it is. We couldn't stop the run last year. When we got pushed around, we're done doing that. All right, one more time.
Cam this year, we couldn't stop the run last year. So to add guys like that, size like that,
right here,
we're not going to be pushed around up front like we were last year.
I love it. I love it. I love how he says it how it is.
We were struggling at the end of the season when it came to the linebacker position.
Here we go.
Yeah, we didn't draft one.
TD's like, come on, man. We're both linebackers. We didn't draft one?
In this year's draft, are you excited about where we are at linebacker position, or is there something that you're going to continue to work on as the offseason continues? I think, we're going to continue just like looking in general at every position and just try to get better across the board. But I do feel good about Josie and then Trevin's progression last year. They're two guys that we trust and we feel like we can count on. And then, Claude Cherilus behind them is another really good player.
So let's talk about the linebackers real quick, all right? Because when Derek Brown was healthy, I think our line was average to above average. Once he goes down, our front line, I mean, let's be real, it went to below average. So constantly tackles, guards, centers were working second level, getting their hands on Josie, getting their hands on Trevin, which it's hard to blame Trevin, all right, when he's a rookie, all right, a 4th-round pick, and you put him in there, especially with the defense that, Avero played and the Panthers played. A lot of nickel, you had some 3-4, but a lot of nickel too. So Trevin's right there in the middle. They're going right after him. I think it was hard for him to adapt. And not hard. I mean, it's expected as a rookie, right? So you had Trevin in there. Then Josie gets hurt. Then in comes Claude. And I mean, there was really no foundation at all, right? And the communication, it wasn't there either. Because, I mean, it felt like every week we had a different unit in there of some sort. So linebackers, it does slightly concern me, but I'm not as concerned right now. We'll see what they do. Do they add anybody? Do they trade for anybody? We'll see what happens. Final thoughts on the whole video, man. I love the last part where Dan's like, we're not going to get pushed around anymore, right? We're going to nip that thing real quick. McMillan, I get now, right? You got a playmaker on offense for Bryce Young. Hopefully somebody can take advantage of teams focusing on McMillan. Who's going to step up? We'll see what happens. Run game, I'm excited. All right, Trevor Etienne, Rico, Chuba. I mean, there's a lot there. With that being said, that's going to wrap it up. Stay tuned, all right, because on Friday, we're dropping the Kobe Hudson video, and this dude is out of this world, man. So I'll catch you guys then. Take it easy. Panthers Devices out. Peace.